So there have been a lot of surprises this year, at least to me. One of them is that debates are more important than I expected, and the second is at the end, lo and behold, foreign policy has become important in the election that was going to be about the economy, and they both come together next week in a debate about foreign policy.
Yeah, and I think the Romney campaign is excited to come back at this Libya issue and how the Obama administration handled the attack in Libya, in part because Romney kind of bungled it in the first debate.
It took the president 14 days before he called the attack in Benghazi an act of terror.
Get the transcript.
He did, in fact, sir. So let me call it an act of terror.
Can you say that a little louder, Candy?
And they do think they can turn this into a winning argument, even though voters don't really care that much about foreign policy, particularly compared to the economy.
Right, and the argument is that in the first instance, the administration should have done more to protect diplomats overseas before an ambassador was killed in Libya. And the second argument is, well, after it happened, they didn't really tell us the truth, and they didn't admit it was a terrorist attack.
It was extraordinary in that debate that somehow Barack Obama got the better of an argument about Libya where he basically had nothing to stand on. I mean, they did basically tell us it was a demonstration, and it wasn't. So it was really extraordinarily...
And talking to the Romney advisors afterwards, I mean, they were just baffled that that is how that moment played out. That's not how they expected it.
I'm sure it's something they want back, because the interesting thing is if you look at the polling, it's not a top-line issue for a lot of voters, but it is more important to a very critical segment of the electorate, which is those people who are softly supporting Obama right now. They tend to rank foreign policy well ahead of where other voters are. And if you look at our polling over the last month, you've seen a lot of drift on the foreign policy issue for the president. So he actually has been losing some ground on this particular topic, not because of attacks by Mitt Romney, but just because what's happening in the world.
Right, and of course, they can't do anything about it now. Foreign policy is the last debate, so the last impression people will have of these two men on the same podium, on the same stage, will be an argument about foreign policy.
Yeah, but when you looked at this debate schedule 2 months ago, you thought, oh, well, Obama will get a ride out in a blaze of glory because foreign policy is his strength. It doesn't quite look that way so much now. But I think what's really interesting is if you actually look at the policy of foreign policy, there's not much difference between these two guys. Though, they both want to get out of Afghanistan. They both want to have tough sanctions on Iran. There are a whole series of issues.
Tough on China.
Tough on China. The difference is posture, right? I mean, that they say, look, you don't look tough enough, and so bad things happen. If you look tougher,
line is redder than your red line.
If you look tougher, pursuing the same policies, they work better.
I think everyone knows the most important part about foreign policy is who can look the toughest, right? And so that's what Mitt Romney is doing. He's basically saying, it doesn't really matter so much what the details of our policies are, but what matters is Obama's a weak leader, and I'm a strong leader, and I'm going to take it to the people who, could threaten America.
And the one area where there might be a real difference is that Mitt Romney might be a little bit more likely to attack Iran, and that's actually not a popular thing to do from the voters' point of view.
Absolutely. So I think that it's hard for me to believe that the foreign policy debate, despite what you say, makes a difference in the thing. But I agree with Sarah that people are now wondering, beginning to wonder, could Mitt Romney actually be the president? So they're watching him with a very different light. 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, it was like, this is like entertainment. He doesn't have a shot. Now it's really serious.
Or lack of, but that goes to my first point, which is that the debates have turned out to really matter here, but not because they've turned the race around dramatically. I don't think they really have, but because they kept Mitt Romney in the race long enough for people to give him a second look, or at least that's what I think happened.
Absolutely. I think that first debate, allowing him to go on stage, his poll numbers were terrible. He had a couple missteps. The campaign seemed to be reeling. And then he goes and pulls off what I think everybody agrees is a very strong debate performance against the incumbent president. Looks presidential because a lot of what people knew about Mitt Romney they'd seen from these really nasty negative ads. All of a sudden now they see this guy, he seems fairly competent. He's not exactly the conservative fire breather that he's
right, and Obama disappoints.
Well, the two things go together, I guess, right?
But I think as of moving back to the last debate, I don't know that will have quite the fundamental impact on the race that the first one did, just because it kind of was an opportunity for both candidates to
Can I ask you a question about how the campaign is handling the debate thing? I mean, are they angry at Candy Crowley of CNN for how she handled that Libya question?
I think there was a lot of controversy, as we know, about Candy Crowley even going into the debate and what role she was playing. So I certainly don't think they were pleased that, basically in front of this audience of tens of millions, Candy Crowley said, no, the president's right. Afterwards,
he probably wasn't.
Right, and afterwards she did other interviews that were not watched by tens of millions in which she explained, well, actually Mitt Romney was right, but the way he phrased it actually made the president right. And so So
she kind of tried to correct herself midstream.
In light of all of that, the campaign, I think, is just shaking their heads. But they know that there's nothing you can do. You can't litigate the argument against the media and win it. You have to go litigate it in the next debate, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to put that story together.
And happily for them, I guess, on that front, they get the chance to do that. They get it in a few days.
Exactly.
Right. And Bob Schieffer will probably be more like Jim Lehrer than Candy Crowley.
But it's interesting though, sir, because you said they want to raise this. They want to go back to this subject, and they didn't the day after the debate. But you think they want to go back to this.
And that was a surprise. I'm surprised they didn't come back at it the next day. I mean, my only thought on that is that I think they saw how they got caught up and didn't really have their points kind of nailed down, and I think they want some time to regroup and decide, here's how we really want to make that argument. Because what you should be arguing about is not the exact words of terrorist or act of terror. I mean, you want to be arguing a broader strategy here that Obama has failed in keeping America and its ambassadors safe, and his leadership has fallen short at a time when we really needed it. And I think they're trying to put those pieces together.
Yeah, the way he executed that attack, it kind of feeds into this depiction of him as this craven opportunist who's really trying to jump on an incident, that is tragic, but it's particularly for the families involved, just to try and score some points against the president.
That was the part of that exchange that I thought worked for the president.
And the suggestion that anybody in my team, whether the Secretary of State, our UN ambassador, anybody on my team would play politics or mislead when we've lost 4 of our own, Governor, is offensive.
That was the dramatic moment, and I think that was, one that clearly the Obama people had seen coming and were prepared for, and that made it hard for him to come back.
But then I think the flip side to that is, so what? If you're the president and you have a controversy like that, it doesn't deserve scrutiny? I mean, this kind of thing is going to get scrutiny in the political arena. That's especially true in an election year, and you know what? The Obama administration knows that.
Yeah. The irony here is that we've had 2 debates. Everybody sort of thinks Mitt Romney won the first. More people than not sort of think President Obama won the second. I think we're kind of where we were going to be anyway, which is a pretty even race, and an emphasis on a few sectors of the electorate, including, and particularly, and David, you wrote about this in a blog post, women.
Right.
It's now the race over women, college-educated women in particular, and exurban and suburban women who are worried about what?
Right. Well, who were very much part of the Obama winning coalition in 2008. Well, there's a big debate. Are they worried about abortion, education, social issues, or are they worried about the economy? I think the Romney camp, correct me if I'm wrong, has been counting on women really going to vote the pocketbook, right?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. I mean, you can talk about abortion and that's fine, but when women turn out to vote this year, they're not voting based on abortion rates.
Right, and so the polls are shifting, but when you look at them, for quite a while in this campaign, women more than men thought Obama could do a better job on the economy. But it must be some erosion in that.
Yeah, and the most interesting breakdown is between married women and single women, and obviously that you see that throughout the polling, but that the Romney camp really seems to be going after this group, but both on the jobs front. The economy is soft, your kids don't have jobs, your husband don't have jobs, you don't have a job, but then also on the deficit. I think they're trying to play to that pocketbook concern. Now, the extent to which that resonates with female voters,
well, it's the better future for your children argument. With this huge deficit, you're basically cutting your children off at the knees and not allowing them to have a future that's as bright as yours.
Well, and also they've got they're trying to kind of distract from what the Obama team is doing, which is going right after them on some of these much more controversial social issues that Mitt Romney has really been reluctant to talk about over the course of the campaign.
Why does the front page of every paper today have a story about women and the election? Was it the debate? Was it the poll?
Well, I think it was what was happening going into the debate, and then what happened immediately after the debate made it clear that they had decided.
And what happened in the debate,
with
binders full of women.
Binders full of women, yeah, that's right.
Great line.
Yeah, I tweeted yesterday, everybody here who thought binders would be the hot buzzword after this debate, raise your hand. No, I don't think anybody did. But it was, I think there had been some erosion in the polls, but this has been overstated, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Barack Obama is still winning big among women overall, but there had been some erosion. That matters a lot in a close election, and that the Obama people thought that they would need to shore that up that front, and the Romney camp thought, well, we have an opening here to move in the margins among women, and that's really important.
And you have to look at what demographics are movable at this point. I mean, Mitt Romney's not going to win black voters, He's not going to win Latino voters. He's just getting creamed. He's not even making inroads votes with Latino voters.
And it's going the wrong way, by the way.
It's going the wrong way. And so this is one of these areas, aside from white men, where he can actually hope to move the numbers a little bit.
And the fundamental truth is that Mitt Romney does need to eat into Obama's supportors, and this is a group of Obama supporters that
they're a lot more
vulnerable.
Right, they're softer than white men. Where in our last polling, Mitt Romney has a 20-point lead.
The interesting thing, though, on this group is that we've seen, I guess, Peter Hart has done focus groups in Virginia, Ohio, and Wisconsin over the last couple weeks, and in each of those, the women over the age of 50 seem to really highlight social issues, contraception, birth control, over pocketbook issues, which has actually been kind of a surprise to me, but I think the Obama campaign's clearly talked to them.